Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. On today's show, we welcome Joe McCue. For those of you that don't know, Joe is the founder of Pencilwrench, amongst other things. And today we have him on to share his story, talk about challenges we see in the industry, and how he used some of these pain points to create a really successful business that makes the lives of both shops and technicians better. Joe, my absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How you doing today, buddy?
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, I'm excited to be here, man. Happy Wednesday.
So your story is very, very unique. You've spent a lot of time in this industry. You've been around it for many, many years. How did you get started in the business? What was your first job?
I was that guy who always knew what they wanted to do. When I was a kid, I was fixing lawnmowers and all that, and went to tech school in high school, and started at a Buick AMC Renault dealer in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania back in 1980, right? Started as a technician and spent, about 10 years wrenching. And then I went into the management side, and I spent the rest of my 35-year career in automotive dealerships, managing in some capacity or another, and from everything from service manager, director, fixed ops director, to vice president, general manager. So again, just spent my entire career in car dealerships.
I, so when you mention AMC, that ages you a little bit. It's been a while.
Yeah, we won't go there, man.
I'm guessing over that time, things have changed, right? We've seen it
Yeah.
throughout our industry, throughout the decades. And even in my time in the industry, it's pretty crazy how much has changed, but there's a lot of it that stayed the same too, right? I mean, there's a lot of our industry that has progressed, but there's a lot of things that I think we still have a lot of room to improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. There has been a heck of a lot of change, but you're right. There's still those daily challenges, and with the technicians shortage in this day and age, and all the other diversity that's going on in an automotive environment. It's a tough job. It's a challenge to run a store today.
So that you kind of spun all of that experience into starting a company called Pencilwrench. Can you tell us a little bit about Pencilwrench?
Yeah, so Pencilwrench, really the reasoning behind Pencilwrench is like, regardless, Jay, of where I went, I worked at a bunch of different dealerships in different states, and like I always wanted to suit up, man, and be an absolute professional, and where it evolved from was, you know, you know, we send out every day in a dealership, anywhere from, who knows, depending on the size of the store, 20 to 100, 150 invoices every single day. And the technician is required to write those stories on the invoices. And, the start of it was like, I really wanted our stories that we gave to the customers to be professional and spelled correctly. Look, Jay, if I was going to send you an email, and I'd probably reread that email 5 or 6 times before I hit the send button, because I wouldn't want you to get it and think I was a jackass, right? And so, I wanted to give that technician that same leg up where he'd be able to write a super quick story, and there'd be no acronyms, no misspellings, clear, concise. So on the onset, really, so our customers could get an invoice that we could be proud of as in the dealership.
And if you've, and most of our listeners have spent a lot of time in shops, and that is one of the biggest challenges that I think most shops have when it comes down to the day-to-day operations of their shop is the barriers in how a technician communicates. We talk a lot about it between the manager and the technician, but this really is being able to properly articulate what is going on with somebody's car in a way that they understand, that is clean and polished. And I think there's so much value in that. And especially as these repairs get more expensive, it's going to be required that we have better explanations, that we are more polished in our approach to customers. And I think we all remember the days, I was maybe one of those technicians where you had that paper work order and you're reading it and you're trying to comprehend what was written, and there's oil all over it and the handwriting's not great, the grammar's not great, it is just a mess. And I think that was one of the large barriers for us to be able to get the respect we need, is that when you're that end customer and maybe you saw some of that writing or you saw some of that oil on the paper or whatever it might be, it didn't exactly paint that picture of professionalism that we were looking for, did it?
No, and you know what, Jay, as I think back to when I started in the industry, I always wanted to be a professional, and I was upset when somebody said, "Oh, you're a grease monkey." Right? No, I mean, these technicians today are very skilled technicians. I mean, you can't open the hood of a car and do anything without some serious skill. And so, thinking about that is like these guys are very, very busy. So, what our tool does is it gives them a platform where they can point and click and write like a 200-word story in literally 35 seconds. It's clear, it's concise, it contains all the information that an OEM is going to need to pay a warranty claim. And the other thing we do is we currently serve 26 different OEMs. We've been around for about 11 years, so the product has really evolved. And so what we do is we take the OEM's policy and procedure manual, and we take those important items and we slip them into the Pencilwrench menus to remind the technicians, what is important to get that claim paid. So if he's replacing tires, it's going to have a red prompt that's going to pop up and say, hey, you need to, don't forget to put the old and new DOT codes in. Or if it's a Ford, it's going to ask him for repair validation codes. If it's a Volkswagen, it's going to ask him for vendor codes. And, again, we put those red policy procedure prompts throughout the product. So not only do we enable them to write really clear stories, but we enable them to remember everything that we need to get the claim paid. And the other thing is we encourage our dealers to not only use Pencilwrench for warranty claims, but all repairs, because it sells so much value in what they do. There's a huge difference between, documenting, the replacement of a water pump, for instance. And a lot of techs, they're busy. They don't like writing stories. So they might write something like R&R water pump. Right. But that's not the whole story. What else did they do? Right. Did they, initially check the coolant level? Did they do a cooling system pressure test? Did they put dye in it? Did they look at it with a black light, and on and on and on. And so, again, we enable them to write those super comprehensive stories. So, not only to sell value to the customer, right, but to help get that warranty claim done, and to provide your customer with an invoice that's clear, it's clean and concise, and they can read it. And, Jay, if you really think about it from the warranty administration point, you can't blame the technician for the story that they write today, because they've always been taught to write the story that's going to get the warranty claim paid. So that story might look like, it might look like CK PO 569 R&R dust shield to pinpoint A, and so a layman who knows, a customer who knows nothing about a car is going to look at that invoice and just shake their head and say, hey, look, it may be a great story to get the warranty claim paid, but when it comes to the customer end of it, we're delivering a story that's incomprehensible to them. And, that doesn't translate into the transparency that is so important when you're fixing somebody's car. You should be able to read that invoice, Jay, and know exactly what they did and feel good about, knowing exactly what was done.
It's fascinating to me because that you bring up the warranty part, and the warranty part is so important. I think that's where a lot of technicians have complaints because maybe they're not getting paid for the time that they're putting in. And a lot of it comes down to them just writing a terrible story up front. And so being able to make that far simpler for them and maybe taking some of that brain power that's needed to write a story up, because if anybody's done it, it can be tedious and it's not the most fun thing in the world to document everything that you just did on a car. And that might cause you to skip some steps a little bit, not so much in the process of fixing the car, but in the process of writing that repair order and ultimately what is going to be seen by the warranty administrator and how they're processing that. And so if one of our most common complaints is like from a dealer technician saying, I don't want to do warranty work because I don't get paid on the stuff that I do. Well, if you can spin that a little bit, that's a huge advantage for a dealership.
It is, and it brings up the how the name Pencil Wrench came about. So Jay, back in when I was 19 years old, starting a car dealership, there was this old guy, and he used to say to me, he goes, "Son, the pen is mightier than the wrench." And so like what he meant by that is it's okay to fix a car and do everything, but if you don't write it all down, you're not going to get paid for it. And so we that involved in the Pencil Wrench because of that technician mentor that I had back 40 years ago.
It's so funny because that you and I have a lot in common. We talked about that before, and it is really funny to hear some of your stories because I think some of them are similar to what my path was. Our initial company was called Find a Wrench, and it was because my dad said when I was a kid that he couldn't find a damn wrench anywhere, and he was referring to mechanics, right? So it's funny how those mentors shape you over the years, and those people that we looked up to when we were younger really have a big impact. And I want to maybe take the conversation there a little bit, and then we'll kind of go back to the industry specific stuff. And I apologize for hopping around a little bit, but I think it is a really good segue to talk about that transition for you from the dealership life to starting Pencil Wrench. Do you recall the moment where you were finally just driven to actually do something? I'm guessing you probably thought about it for a while and then maybe did it. Or walk me through connecting those dots of how Pencil Wrench really came together.
So, great question. So, I really, always wanted to do something more than, what I was doing in my daytime job. And, so I was looking for that opportunity. And, at the time, this is, 11 and a half, almost 12 years ago now, I was working at a Ford store in Maryland. And, I just, I was a service director at the time, and I just wasn't happy, right? And I remember exactly where I was, Jay. I was driving across this little bridge in Maryland called the Dover Bridge, man, and I was just like praying, God, give me something more that I can do with my life that to make a difference, right? And that day, I was in the dealership and working with a drivability technician. And great guy, could fix cars, but his stories were less than, they were just terrible. And, again, he hated writing stories and it showed. And so, I got the idea of Pencil Wrench that day working with him. And I'm like, dang, that's a tremendous idea. That was like a Thursday. And so 2 days later on a Saturday, me and a guy, a tremendous guy, Bill Snyder, I worked with, we started Pencil Wrench, right? And that Saturday morning, as we sat and wrote out the papers for the LLC, I realized that Thursday, when I got that idea, was my deceased mom's birthday. And like,
Man.
I just thought that was like so cool because my whole life, man, my mom was just a prayer warrior. She knew when I wasn't happy, and I think all moms do. And so I thought it was, really awesome that I got that idea, but on that day, and since that time, the tool that we started 11 and a half, 12 years ago is very, very. Um, what's the word? I mean, it was bad, right? When we started, it was elemental. Let me just say this, but over the last decade and some real diversity and just sticking with it, and it's really evolved into a pretty cool piece of software. And so and Jay, I'll tell you, our growth has been that, like, look, man, we really want to make a difference for a technician, and we've always focused on the technician and the end user and his experience, because that's where it all starts. And our laser focus on, like, how we help that technician has really driven the growth of our company. And I guess I put it this way is, to our customers is, look, I could care less about selling another subscription, but if I could make a difference, man, at that level, for that technician at the workbench on a day-to-day basis, and that's just huge. And our Pencilwrench team is, and probably every founder of every company says this, Jay, but, like, our team is tremendous. Pencilwrench is a piece of software, but our team is incredible. They're just they're dealership people. They're passionate. They get it, and so we love just making a difference in the industry.
Thanks to Universal Technical Institute for being a sponsor of Beyond the Wrench. Universal Technical Institute, a place that provides opportunity for passion to become purpose, for training to lead toward a career. For over 55 years, UTI's family of schools has helped students pursue their passion in exciting fields like transportation, skilled trades, and energy. There's a reason why students choose us and top brands hire our graduates: reputation and commitment. Our relationships with some of the world's most recognizable brands allow students to gain specific knowledge. As a student, you'll train how the industry does, learning from instructors with real-world experience and training hands-on with industry tools and equipment in the lab. We're committed to your success. That's why we're making $15 million in scholarships and grants available this year alone to those who qualify. It's time to invest in you. Get started today at uti.edu. UTI is an educational institution and cannot guarantee employment or salary. Financial aid, scholarships, and grants are available to those who qualify. Awards vary due to specific conditions, criteria, and state. How hard were those early days when you are, sitting down and writing up the LLC and then building the platform and building what your business is going to be? Because I know in my experience, you could read every business book in the world and not know what it's like until you go through it. And I don't know that there's a great way to explain it other than to say it is damn hard.
It is very hard. And you just have to mistake your way through it, and make those mistakes. And I can tell you that, like, through that, not all your friends really, you figure out who your friends really are, right? Then they don't, some that you think are your friends, and even some of your family, they're doubtful and telling you, that's a stupid idea, it'll never work. And beyond all the crazy business diversity, and you just have to just stay the course and stay focused. And for me, is like, look, man, like, I'm just a car guy, right? Another auto technician, evolved into manager, and, like, I'm nothing special, but, like, the idea, I think, is special. It was gifted me from God. And so, like, I think our company culture is just a culture of humility. And, like, nobody, whether it be a partner or whether it be one of our trainers, we're all the same. We're just in there trying to really make a difference for a dealer. So, I think that that culture throughout the company is just really, and that focus on the end user and the dealer and making a difference has really driven, the tremendous growth that we've had, which is just, gosh, it's the last couple years has been kind of like drinking water out of a fire hose, Jay. So, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been tremendous, and we're helping a lot of technicians and car dealerships, which is very exciting.
Was there ever a time early on where you questioned it? And I'll refer to a story of mine where I remember we launched the company the same time that we were having my son Bo, and I remember going to my dad's shop and my grandpa was there, and I said, "Hey grandpa, did you hear I quit my really good job and started started a business?" And he just, the look of dejection on his face when I told him was quite funny. I'm sure all entrepreneurs kind of go through that, or small business owners of any type, where people think you're nuts. But did you ever have that time or that moment where when you first did it, you were kind of like, a little iffy here?
Yeah, we did. We definitely, had a bunch of moments throughout. The first piece of software was terrible, and I was working a full time job at the time, and we were, we just were out there trying to sell it, and it seemed like forever, right? And we finally had a dealer group here in Florida pick it up, and they're still our customers today. But that first dealer, like when they signed up, we're like, so doggone excited. And then it just seemed like for years we're stuck on 30 dealerships. Like, how can we get past 30 dealerships? And then it was like 100. We were stuck at 100 dealerships. And then from there, like, I didn't even, between, we have about, I don't know, 1,500 stores using our software, and a little north of 26,000 technicians. And like, after 100, it just was a blur from there. So, but yeah, through those times, there was some moments where you're like, wow, but you got to just keep going, man.
It is interesting. And I think, again, there's so many parts of our stories that mirror each other, and that's where I think the conversation when we first met was very, very refreshing to me. Was that here's a guy that came from a very similar background to me, had a lot of the same experiences, and started a company that is really, really cool. Now, the company itself, we talked about really kind of how it works, what it does to make the lives of both these shops and the technicians easier. When you're looking at this, and as you're trying to help improve the lives of technicians, is there anything that's really kind of stood out to you that you put together and you talk about making an impact, that hey, this part of our software is making a huge impact? And I know it's probably easy to point to the low hanging fruit of it makes their job easier because they don't have to write all this stuff that they don't want to write. But is there anything over and above that where you look at these relationships with technicians and say, I know we're making a difference right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's both from an OEM standpoint and from that technician at the workbench standpoint. We've had some tremendous experiences with OEMs. We had Audi of America reach out to us, and we actually wrote the software in conjunction, in collaboration with their warranty team, and we have a lot of great Audi dealers, and the same. We've just have great experiences with other OEMs throughout the years, and technicians. To me, that's really where that at the dealer level where it's exciting for me. I was in a dealer in Denver recently, and I had a technician. I was in the service director's office, and the technician came in, and he's like, "Holy cow, it's the Pencilwrench guy!" And he like gave me a hug, man. And he goes, "Dude, you make me so much money. It's incredible, man." And so, that really, to me, man, that really makes me feel good. And we're in I was in a Mercedes-Benz store up on Long Island, and I walked in, and the service director goes, "Hey, man, I want to introduce you to Jose." And so, like, I went back, and he goes, "Hey, Jose, the Pencilwrench guy is here." And this Hispanic guy came running up to me and gave me a hug, and like, "Man, you like changed my life." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "I couldn't do any warranty claims because I couldn't write the stories, and what Pencil Wrench has done is enabled me to expand from just doing maintenance to doing warranty repairs. You changed my life, you changed my family." And to me, man, that really hits me in the heart. And today, with so many, you know, technicians coming into the business who English isn't their first language, it really, really helps them because, they can, and in a lot of cases, they can speak the lingo. They're fantastic, tremendous technicians, but they really struggle with writing and typing. And so, it helps those guys get into the industry and gives them a leg up.
That's impact right there, man. That is awesome. That is so, so cool to hear. And as you're talking, one of the things that stuck out to me was that I spent some time working for an OEM and was able to, as part of my training process when I worked there, sit with the warranty department and go through the process of processing warranty claims. So I was seeing it through the eyes of the OEM. And I learned so much in my short time just kind of helping out as part of my training process, in that the reason they need you to write a good description of what you're doing is because oftentimes they're trying to recoup their money from the manufacturer of that part that they put on the vehicle or they put on whatever it is that they're manufacturing. And so I think there's a lot of technicians that could learn from that side of it too, right? To understand from the OEM why they need a good story. And a lot of times it's to make their own business viable.
Yeah, so again, man, it's so amazing. I know we talked before and how our stories parallel each other, but thinking back, one of my first jobs as a service manager, I took over the Subaru store in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was probably there for 2 months, and we were hit with a warranty audit. And I just remember pulling all the files in this humongous, having hundreds and hundreds of files of vehicles warranty repairs on this humongous conference table, and they had were trying to debit us for $40,000. And looking at all those claims, and it just made me realize, like, wow, like that every little piece of that warranty process, from the time that customer tells us what's wrong with the car till they sign that initial repair order, through the the timekeeping, through the three C's of the warranty story, through the of course the diagnostic and repairs of the car. Every part of it is so critical. And dealers can claim all kinds of warranty repairs, but at the end of the day, if any of those processes are weak, and you're going to get debited back. So it's not so much as claiming the money, but being able to keep that money in the dealership. So like you, Jay, I learned at a very early age is like how important that really was. It was the first time that I had a big picture. And here's the reality of it is like, as a service manager, like, you're ultimately responsible for all those claims. And so it gave me a checkup from the neck up on how important warranty documentation was. So I guess like you, man, I learned at an early age.
As you're painting that picture of all of those work orders on that conference room table, I'm having flashbacks and nightmares to having to do that. Those warranty audits are brutal. They are not fun to do at all. And
Nope.
especially if you're trying, you were 2 months into the job, it's not even your work that you're being audited on. And I can
Yep.
only imagine what a headache that was.
Yep, amazing. And we recently, we have a big dealer group. I'm not going to name the name or anything, but they had a warranty audit about 3 years ago before Pencilwrench, and they got jammed up for I think 30, between $30,000 and $50,000, and that we installed Pencilwrench like 2 years ago, and they just had a warranty audit last fall, and they shared with me. They actually. The vice president of fixed operations sent me an internal email, and the auditor, they got debited for $2,000, none of which was for a story. And the auditor, it was a General Motors store, said that was the best documentation he had ever seen in his career. So, the proof is really in the pudding. I mean, and it is so important, whether it be a GM or Benz or Toyota or whatever. The documentation is so critical, and we want to, get those repair event stories. They need to be very, very specific, per repair event, and putting them to the repair order document is just critical.
That's the business side. How important is it for that technician to also be documenting what they're doing just from a liability perspective and making sure that they're covering their backside?
Yeah, it's I'm not sure if, all technicians really realize, like, this is a legal document that they're typing on. And, I think, in some cases they just really don't consider that, and don't pay a bunch of attention to it. But, at the end of the day, after a 35-year career in car dealerships, I spent probably, a dozen times in court cases. And, really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you did in the dealership. What matters is what's written on that invoice, on that repair order. And so, it is ultimately critical. And we don't talk too much about the legal side of it, but, our stories, the menus that are set up at Pencilwrench are designed to capture everything that is necessary legally as well. So it puts you in good standing when you repair a car, as well.
It's unfortunate that we have gotten to this point in the industry, just in the world, right, where you really have to think about that side of covering your tail. And I look back to my own experience again, in that when I would do a brake job, it was just a brake job. And I never really thought, as a young technician, what that really meant. If those brakes don't function and you put a family in that vehicle, it's not just a brake job anymore. And I think we can do a better job as an industry of helping these technicians understand the importance, not only in how they get paid, but really, how are you covering yourself? How is, if you're a business, if you're a dealership, how are you covering yourself with your documentation? And I feel like so much of it comes down to process and making sure that you're following a process and you're doing things the right way. What I really, really love about Pencilwrench, and I don't want to make it a sales spiel about Pencilwrench, but the reason I am going this route is because I am a huge, huge fan of what it does and what it can prevent you for trouble down the road with, whether that is pay or that is just covering your backside in case something goes wrong. So I think not only does it make it easier, it does help secure a technician and a business from getting themselves in trouble. And I think that goes a long way. And as these cars get more complex, that's a big deal. It's a big deal that, if we were supposed to calibrate a sensor, or, we were supposed to do something, that we actually did it.
I mean, absolutely. And, it's going to make the distinction of, when it comes to recalls, how absolutely critical that is. But, anytime we're touching a vehicle today, whether it be a set of brakes or a manufacturer's recall, or OEM, warranty water pump replacement or maintenance, it is critical that we, document it clearly, for so many reasons. But, inclusive of, giving that customer an invoice that's clear, it's concise, and, building that trust, that transparency, I think that, is so critical for a dealership or any repair facility that a layman who's doesn't have to have a technical background to read that invoice and be able to clearly understand what we did to their car. Jay, it's important, and it is, and it not only covers us, but it shows the value in what we've done. And so you know, and the documentation side of it, it takes time to do it right. It's I'm not a fast typer, right? I do type with two hands. I'm not a one finger guy, but I probably type at 30 words a minute, which is really slow, and then I have to go back and fix half of them. But to be able to write a clear, concise story and like a 200-word story in 35 seconds, I mean, that's huge for a car dealership or any repair facility. If you consider the number of cars that they work on every day and the number of documentations, for each car, it may, a repairer, has an average of, maybe 2 or 3 job lines on it, and those stories for each of those job lines, it ends up, and we measure this, with the Pencilwrench manager's dashboard, but like the time savings is it saves so much time. And the reality of that is you can get those cars out quicker. You can get more cars in, and getting your throughput increase like that is huge because, again, back to that technician shortage, man, there's just not, these highly skilled guys are just not out there. And it's tough to just find them and add them. So whether it be an aftermarket facility or a car dealership facility, we're struggling with the same thing, is to get more productivity out of the same amount of staff that we have. And so it is just becomes more and more important.
Technicians, have you checked out WrenchWay yet? WrenchWay is a free online community for automotive and diesel professionals. Whether you're looking for a job or not, WrenchWay makes it easy to explore new opportunities, stay up to date on what's going on in the automotive and diesel communities in your area, and helps improve and promote the technician profession. Check out all of the job details you care about before you apply or interview with WrenchWay Top Shops. Details like photos of the shop and answers to the questions you actually care about instead of the same old copy and paste job description you see everywhere else. Open to new job opportunities but don't want to apply yet? Create an anonymous reverse job post and let shops reach out to you and see what's going on with the industry in your area through WrenchWay's Shop Talk. Join the WrenchWay online community for free by visiting wrenchway.com or by downloading the WrenchWay mobile app. Link is in the show notes. You mentioned the technician coming up to you and thanking you for helping make him more money in a flat rate world, which still is predominant on the dealership side. There's so much opportunity to get more efficient. And I honestly think that's what we have to do. You talked about the technician shortage. Obviously, we live in that world of dealing with that every single day. It's real. There aren't enough people to fill all of these open spots. And one of our real barriers, in my opinion, is that there's the perception that we don't pay well to technicians. And we're doing a technician pay survey as we speak to try and really shine a light on the fact that there are a lot of technicians that actually make a really, really good living if they find the right shop, if they find a shop that they're happy in. Obviously, they're going to be more productive. But from that technician standpoint, when we hear consistently that they want to get paid more, if you're living in that flat rate world as a technician, and obviously it has its shortcomings. There's things that I think a lot of OEs, a lot of dealerships, a lot of technicians wish was better, but that's kind of the system we live with. feel like if you're that technician and you can embrace a technology like this or whatever it is that helps you make you more efficient and better at what you do, there are opportunities to make a lot of money out there as a technician. And I think a lot of that comes down to being polished and presenting yourself as polished and just making yourself more efficient in general, right? When we look at it, that's not changing anytime soon. The flat rate world is not changing. It is a little bit. We're seeing more and more shops adapt and offer different types of pay. But I think when I see that, a lot of times when you offer that different type of pay, you might put a ceiling on yourself in terms of what you can make. So walk me through that piece a little bit. Do you see technicians, whether it's this technology or some other type of technology, do you see them looking at themselves as business people more and maybe trying to be as profitable for themselves as they can be?
So there is a lot of techs that are very, very savvy. And let me just say this for those guys who are considering the industry. It's a tremendous industry. You can make a six-figure income and you can really, you can do a great job for your family in the industry. So as I look back at my career, I wouldn't change, the fact that I was passionate about it at a very young age. It's been a tremendous experience in my career, and there are techs who are very, very smart, and some of them have these condominium sized toolboxes, and they, because they're finding the tools, they're constantly in search of that tool that's going to save them a couple minutes, right? And you have to adopt a change to to get quicker. And I think back at Jay, you reminded me this story is, back way in 1980 at that AMC dealer, there was this technician who was, I'm going to throw this out there. He was 65 years old at the time, and this will blow you away, but here's how he used a lift. Right, he would put the car on a lift. He would lift it up, and he'd shove jack stands under it, and then he'd lift it, let it back down, so it was like 3 feet off the ground, and then he'd roll under that car to work on it, because that's the way he worked on cars all his life. Like his lift never went more than 4 feet high. You know what I mean? And so, that sounds like the square root of stupid, and it is. You know what I mean? But the smarter that we are at looking at technology and saying, wait a second, this is maybe something that I never thought of or did before. But the more I can, and it goes to any tool, look at that and say, wait a second, this could be a game changer. It's important to keep an open mind and, for anything that can give us a leg up in the industry. And then there's some tremendous, I think more and more, back in the day, we always wanted, the industry to recognize us. Like, we weren't grease monkeys. We were, technicians. And let me tell you, in today's automotive industry, there's not an OEM that isn't, their radar is way up. They know what a critical job that a technician does, and what a crisis we're facing with the amount of technicians coming into the industry. And so, like, it's a great career. I definitely recommend it.
Very solid point in that when I was growing up in the industry, you were always looking for that physical tool that would help you get more efficient. I look back and remember how mind blown I was when I saw the effectiveness of an air ratchet as compared to just a regular ratchet, right? And when you look at it, you still have those opportunities with physical tools to be able to make your life easier. But there's also now this whole other world that can make you more efficient and better at what you do. And I love the idea of that curiosity being able to drive yourself to get better. As a technician, what can I do to get better? And shop leaders are always looking for those opportunities, at least the best ones are. But as a technician, there is so much out there that you can do to make yourself more effective if you open your mind to it. And that was just such a solid point.
Yep. Yeah, no question, man. I mean, it's a great. I love the industry. You can obviously we're both very passionate about it, and it's fun, man. It is just fun.
So, walk me through the future of Pencilwrench and what you see as maybe opportunities to expand, or maybe just it's already such a good system. How do you improve when you already have such a good system?
So a couple things, and again, it's totally our focus on the technician. But we've had a ton of heavy duty truck dealers that have reached out to us. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we started on that content, and so today we have a bunch of Peterbilt and Kenworth stores that we help write stories, and we've just recently completed a Harley Davidson piece of software for motorcycle technicians, and so the sky's the limit, right? We're in the U.S., Canada. We have dealers in Australia, but we just went to the National Dealers Convention in Las Vegas, and we launched a new piece of software, which is again an industry first. It's for service advisors, and it's a menu based. How do I write a customer complaint? And so it's a really cool piece of software, but it helps advisors ask all those right questions. So you can take a BDC person who's knows nothing about a car, and a customer that can call in and say, hey, I have some type of noise on my new car, and they just click noise, and so now you're the professional. Hey Jay, when does that? What type of noise is it? It's a squealing. Hey, when does it? Do you notice where it's coming from? And so we query them through all these different questions, and they just click. It's a point and click thing, and they get this incredible complaint line for the repairer. So the cool thing about that is, now the technician gets that, and he can actually diagnose this much quicker. He's not getting a repairer that says, hey, check squeal and advise, right? He's getting a repairer that says, check brake squeal from left rear vehicle that occurs at 1 to 9 miles an hour in reverse on left turns. So we're enabling like a really, a quick, comprehensive complaint line that will really help, those diagnostics be quicker, fixed right the first time, increase those scores and customer satisfaction. So, like again, man, it's just fun to be in the industry, and really, it's no different from that technician who's at his workbench and he's thinking like, how can I make this job faster? You know what I mean? He's just really passionate about that, and it's no different, man. So we're looking at the industry and looking for those tools that can help out for the next level. So no, who knows, man? It's fun,
That is brilliant, by the way. And going back to those shop relationships, we oftentimes see the silos between service advisors, service writers, and the technicians. And oftentimes there's a lot of infighting in a shop because they maybe don't see eye to eye. A lot of it comes down to that communication, and a technician gets frustrated when they don't have the full story of what's going on. The advisor gets very frustrated when the technician doesn't have a good write-up on what they actually did. And as I'm seeing this evolution of your product, you're seeing all of that stuff that creates the silos maybe start to go away. And we had Chris Craig on at one point on the podcast, who it was a service writer. Now he's more of that influencer type role where he's putting a lot of content out. And he talked about how much service writers and service advisors get ignored throughout the process, right? And he's in his case, or what he said was that they're the only people in a dealership that are dealing with the customer, with the ownership, with the leadership in general, with the technicians. They're dealing with everybody. They're the hub between everybody, and yet it's our highest turnover in our industry. We're nearly, I think,
Yep.
50% turnover last I read, and they get no training right off the bat, other than, here's a
Yep.
computer, go to town. That simplifies training, that simplifies communication, that gets a lot of the root cause of the unhappiness of advisors and technicians.
So yeah, I mean, you nailed it, man. And so we launched our complaints feature in a BDC, in a large dealer group. They have a big BDC. There's 40 people in the BDC in New York area. And when we went into, the fixed ops director was like totally bought in. He's like, yeah, we need this, right? And so we went in. I went up personally with our program manager, Melissa Garfield, and we went in to train the BDC manager. And we showed up, and I was like, hey, it's great to meet you. And she was like, okay. She was really from Missouri, right? Because they take thousands of phone calls, and so she thought this was going to be a problem. And what it did is just, it has totally transformed their BDCs. And we trained. She brought, it was really smart what she did. She brought her most untech savvy two girls in to train first, and we went through it. And they said, holy cow, I don't even own a car, and this makes me sound to a customer like I'm an absolute professional. I'm asking them all these questions about a hesitation that just pops up for me. And so I'm capturing these incredible complaints. And so now the vice president of fixed operations for their group met us at NADA, and they're like, tell anybody to contact us and let us know, because we're just in love with the product. But again, you said it, like, service advisors, not always a focus, right? But if you think of, like, what's the absolute most important part of communication, is that communication of what's happening with the car and the customer and the service advisor. So the more that we can tie into exactly what is going on with the vehicle, and relay that information to the technician so they can get a clear idea of what the concern is, that's going to make everything else. It all starts with that communication. So, like, it's just a critical piece, man. And again, another process that we're not really paying attention to, but it is all about the people. And the better we can communicate, the more we'll be able to make a huge difference.
It's interesting that you talked through the implementation of it a little bit. Do you have any advice for people as it relates to how to be open to change, or how to maybe embrace that change? Because even for me, when you introduce something new and something different to your process that you're really used to, it can be tough to get your mind around it. And in a lot of ways, what you do with a shop is introduce a completely different process. How do you get somebody to be open to it and be able to really embrace that change?
So that's a tremendous question, Jay. And, like, the most important thing is, like, just like, think about yourself, man. Is like, I never want to be told anything. Hey, you're going to do this or do that. So the number one thing that we try to do is, when we are doing the initial demo or showing the people, and this will speak to any tool, right? Is we want to make them part of the equation. So we're going to invite the master technicians into the demo. We call it a road test, because we want them to take the software, and we say, try to break it, man. And so the communication, that care for that person, make them part of the equation. Let them raise their hand, say, hey, let's try this. And so from the very onset, if you can make them part of the equation, right, and they can see how this can help them, right, and then with any change, you're going to need to manage that change, right? So you have to inspect what you expect, especially the first couple weeks of usage. And once the technicians like get used to the menus and using the tool, and like any complicated tool, and Pencilwrench is not that complicated, but there's some nuance to it. But with anything, once they get past that, like, hey, this is different, and they start using it, they just fall in love with it. But I think it, and this is a strong word, but you have to love on your team, make them part of the conversation from the very beginning, whether it be any type of tool that you want to institute. And if you get them on your side and they've been part of the decision, man, it's all downhill from there.
That is really, really good advice. And you said something there that I think is so true, in that if you're just trying to force it down somebody's throat, you're going to fight resistance. And, as technicians, we've all probably had something that was, whether it was some type of process or some type of software that was thrown at us, and didn't like it, didn't buy into it right off the bat. And it just causes that internal friction and tension that's not fun when you're in a business.
It's disrespectful, man. You know what I mean? These guys are, hard working, guys, and just to tell anybody, hey, man, I found this, you're gonna do it today. No, that's it's just disrespectful, man. It's just, you got to love on your people, care about them enough to make them part of the solution. And once they see the value, it doesn't matter what a manager says. If they see the value personally, and they're going to use the heck out of it, and and it'll get used.
I think the frustrating part is there are still a lot of managers that manage that way in our industry, right? That, maybe their ego gets in the way, and they're trying to do something. And I'm sure in most cases they're doing it for the good of the business, but their method of communicating a change or why they're doing something oftentimes is just terrible. You see it in shops of all different shapes and sizes. And, a lot of it, I think, is maybe we've had that technician promoted to run a shop that, maybe they just didn't receive any training, or they don't have that personality to really create that buy-in. But man, is that important. And I think that causes so much friction when you have that type of manager.
It does. And like, here's the thing: is like if especially running a car dealership today, there is so much that is thrown at these guys,
Hmm.
right? It's they're so busy, they got so much on their plate, and so it's in a lot of cases, it's not their fault. They're just so overwhelmed, and they can't get their hands around the day-to-day fires that are going on. And so they, what their intention is to do the right thing. They really want to help that technician, and but they just don't know the best way to go about it. We actually, whenever we launch a new store, we have what's called it's a PDF. It's called the Manager's Playbook, and it has a manager's checklist. So it goes through all those processes. Like, hey, make your people part of the, initial event. Meet with them all, talk about the product, tell them about it and what it can do. And again, this is any software, and then, clearly, once they've been made part of the conversation, been made part of the, the choice to, hey, we're going to do this, share your strong expectations. Hey, we want to use this 100% of the time, and then inspect what you expect, and follow up with them. And, but again, it's, in a lot of cases, it's not their fault. They're just, and they haven't been trained, dealerships and, in service departments aren't big on training, whereas, the front end of the store, in a lot of cases, they're, have no problem with dropping thousands of dollars for, front end sales or F&I training. But when it comes to the back end of the store, in some cases they still do, are a little tight with, trying to pay for training when it's so critical.
So much of what you've done over the course of your career has really kind of run core to what our mission is of promoting and improving technician careers. And I just want to take a minute to thank you for everything that you've done. As I've gotten to know you more and the company more, I really, really respect what you've done and what you've built and the legacy that you're leaving behind, because it is something that is having an impact, a really, really, really positive impact on this industry. And it is making it more enticing to be in this career. For so many of us, you and I included, we have so much to thank the industry for. And oftentimes you don't hear that side when you're on social media. You don't hear all of the positives of what this industry has provided all of us. Even those of us that started as technicians, it really is a great industry. What you're doing and the legacy that you're leaving and what you've done is incredible. You're a very, very inspiring person. And the fact that you'd take an hour out of your day to join us for the podcast, it really means the world to me.
Well, thank you, Jay. Right back at you, man. I love what you're doing, and it's humbling to be on the show. And look, man, we're just regular car guys, and I think our passion at helping technicians and helping dealerships and repair facilities is, it makes a difference, and so we're blessed, man.
At the end of the day, you're spot on. We couldn't be luckier to be in this industry, and I couldn't be luckier to get to know you and truly thank you for everything.
Yep, right back at you, man.
That wraps up this week's episode of Beyond the Wrench. Be sure to tune in next week for another brand new episode. As a reminder, don't forget to rate and follow Beyond the Wrench on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps us get Beyond the Wrench in front of other fantastic shop owners, managers, technicians, and dealers just like you, so we can continue to help improve, promote, and grow this amazing industry. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week.